Welcome to this parts video. My name is Randy Clemens, and in this video we're going to be looking at parts for Altium libraries. Specifically, we're going to be looking at some supply chain management issues and how they can easily be solved by using the parts application. Before I leave that, just note that the parts application is a user interface that can connect to an Access database or a MySQL database. MySQL databases can be locally on your company networks, or they can be remote on the cloud, such as AWS, and support multiple users. Okay, so for those let's quickly get into this. For those users who are already using parts, I want to get them through this first part of the tutorial. So the newest features in parts that I'm going to be looking at with you today can be found under the configuration tab. And these are librarian features, so if you have a designer license, they won't be available to you, but they're available in a licensed librarian. So here we're going to enable the Octo Parts Smart Searches, and I'm going to also fill in the search filter here. If you use the search filter, that's optional. That'll be a little bit more clear in a moment. We're going to use this first search filter to filter down to two distributors. One of them is Mouser, one of them is DigiKey, and we're going to be looking for distributors with stock. Okay. We're also going to enable a feature I call push part number, where we push a primary part number to a secondary part number and to a third part number. So let's take a look at that. So I've got a record bookmarked already here in the parts front end. That's an end of life. It's a 10K ohm resistor. We'll look at that in the design. So it was placed in the design, and you can see if we look in the properties panel, there's no inventory. And if we also looked in active BOM, open that active BOM. And if we looked for that 10K ohm resistor, we just see the status is unknown, but if we at least click on the line, we see we have no stock. Okay. All right. So our goal here is to demonstrate how to quickly resolve this supply chain issue for the 10K ohm resistors with this part number. So this was placed from a database library. At the end of this demonstration, for those who are interested, I'll show you where you can download a copy of the database library for free, and you can play with it. Okay, so anyway, the design ID for this part, the unique record ID, is 30,009. And you can see that's the record we're at here in the parts. We can get there with a Control F for a find, type in 30,009. Yes, since we're already at the record, I'll try again. 30,009. There we go. Or if we can use the bookmark. If we've saved the bookmark, we can jump to it. Or we can enter a record. For example, we can put in 30,008. We would go to 30,008. I'll put in 30,009. We'll jump to that, and then I'll bookmark. It'll be already bookmarked when you do the jump. All right, enough about the bookmarking. Let's look at this part. So a couple of things here. We've got the supplier is DigiKey, and we can jump directly to DigiKey through the shopping cart here. It's kind of representative of the shopping cart. So we can see it's a discontinued part. They've got a direct substitute here for some Samsung parts, and they've got a direct substitute for using some Stackpole parts and Bournes. So why don't we pick this Samsung part? Just checking the specs. It looks good. And then what we'll do is just drag and drop that to our hat. And you'll notice right away we're getting a prompt to let us asking if we'd like to change our part number. We'll say OK. Notice that we have an option that we can push this new part, if we like, over to our part number 2. I'll go ahead and say yes for this demonstration. So I've pushed the old part number into 2. And let's go back into DigiKey again. And we also had a direct substitute for the stack pole part. So we'll just drop that in the hat. You can see we're getting ready to change that. We'll go ahead and say yes. Do we want to push? So that'll push part number 2 down to part number 3 and push this old part number over to 2. All right, so at this point we have 3 good part numbers. Actually, this one on the end I think is our original bad part number. So let's go back and get one more. This time, instead of going directly through DigiKey, I'll demonstrate using what I call the Smart Octo Part Search. So we can click on that and it'll search by description. I'll select the Agio part. I'll drive down to DigiKey. And checking the specs, it looks good. And drag and drop that into the hat. We're going to change our part number. And we're going to push our part numbers. And we'll save. So at this point, we have 3 good alternate part numbers. One by Samsung, one by Stackpole, and one by Yageo. So back in our design now, all we would need to do with that library installed would be to refresh. And we can see now that if we were to look at the 10K ohm resistor, that there's supply. And we can see also in the properties panel, you should see the same thing. Looks like the property panel needs to be refreshed. Oh, I know what it is. I've only updated the library. That's why you're seeing the update over here. And now we'll go ahead and update the design using tools, update parameters. So you can see a few of these little blue diamonds in here. That's the parameters that are going to be changed. We'll go ahead and accept our change. And now when we look at this part, we'll see that we've got inventory. Now one thing I wish Altium would do would be to display manufacturer 2 and 3 here. I believe they could do that if the developers wanted to put a little more effort into that. So anyway, that's how we've solved our supply chain issue using parts, its newest features, which is a smart octo part search and pushing the part numbers. What I'm going to do next is show you how easy it would be to migrate a database library up to Altium 365. And notice right now in my Altium 365 space I have 3 parts here. I'll just delete those. Okay, so at this point I'll do a refresh. We don't have any parts in our Altium 365 space. So I'll go back to this database library. And one of the important things I'd point out about using a database library is it's an excellent tool to clean up your library to get consistent descriptions using the drag and drop from Mouser or DigiKey into the parts front end, and you can get very consistent descriptions that'll look very professional. Okay, let's get this migrated. So we'd select Import Library. The first thing you should always do is hit the Advanced tab, and then after the Advanced tab, I'm going to let that fly back and pin that so we can get it better. We have a Validate button right here. We'll validate, and we can see in our messages panel that we've got a problem here. Record 30,000. There's an undefined component type. It's because I'm using a part that I call new for a template. And now if we do a validate, we don't see any issues found. I do wish Altium would create a no issues successful message there, or something similar to what they do in the schematic. Anyway, I can import that now. While that's importing, I'll make a point to show you that if you were interested in downloading the parts database and playing with it, you would go over to PCBpartsblogspot.com, select the download tab, select the download arrow, and extract these files in the zip folder onto a C drive or a local drive just for your first demo. Here I've put them on my C drive in a folder called parts. All right, let's see how we're doing on progress here. Just about done. All right, so we've finished that. We can open the log if we like, and we can see that we have either success or already created. Already created usually applies to components where you're using the same symbol again or the same footprint again, because you only need one symbol or one 0402 footprint for a resistor or capacitor. So we'll close those now, and we'll look in our components panel. Pin that back down. And if we look at our Altium managed components, we can see we've imported the same 22 parts that were in the database. One of the things you see right away is they're blue. But let's take another look at that. We'll just place the part 10K part here, and then we'll also place the same 10K ohm part that was migrated. Okay. So notice that when we selected the migrated part that we get to see the additional manufacturer 2 and 3, which is nice. Again, Altium seemed to have favored their managed components over the database library. So those users who are, it's not actually just a database library, it's file-based library. So users who are using integrated libraries, symbol concentric libraries, or integrated libraries would see the same thing as I'm showing you here. You'd only see the primary manufacturer part number. Would be nice if Altium would support these others for the file-based libraries. I believe they could quite easily, particularly if the user has good naming convention, meaning that they named those parameters as shown here, because these are the same parameters that we migrated. And if Altium can identify these parts after migration, they should be able to have identified them before migration. Anyway, that's all there is to solving supply chain issues, and also it's all there is to importing or migrating a database library up to Altium's managed 365 components. And you might want to consider using a database tool like Parts to scrub your libraries and projects prior to migrating the data, the components up to the library. That will give you a nice clean library in your managed components, because it's a garbage in, garbage out kind of problem. The data up in managed components isn't going to look any better than what it was when you migrated it. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. I'll leave a link in the description down below where you can download parts. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for viewing.